Amelia, a young content creator, explores an abandoned 250-year-old house called Elmwood Manor for her paranormal investigation series. She starts outside and then moves to the attic. In the attic, she finds a hidden trapdoor under the old floorboards. Behind it, she discovers a dusty, old leather-bound book with cryptic symbols. As she flips through the pages, strange whispers and footsteps echo in the house. The book seems to react to her presence. Pages move on their own. Okay, I've got the book. It feels ancient. Let's see what secrets this place holds. The camera's rolling. Just a normal hallway in Elmwood Manor, right? Wait. Did that shadow just move? No. I must be seeing things. Whoa. The door, it just slammed shut on its own. My heart is pounding. I need to keep filming. There's something there. In the corner of the frame, a flicker. Like a person, but transparent. I'm gonna read a passage from this book. Maybe it's connected. It says, "Where shadows crawl and spirits weep, the ancient dark shall wake from sleep." What was that? A wind. It's freezing in here. No. The lights. The old Blackwood Manor stood on the hill like a skeletal finger, pointing at a perpetually gray sky. They said it was haunted. Of course. Every town has a house like that. But I wasn't just they. I was Amelia, a skeptic with a camera, determined to debunk the local legends for my paranormal investigation channel. The front door creaked open with an invitation I couldn't resist. Dust motes danced in the slivers of moonlight piercing through grimy windows, painting the grand foyer in shades of silver and black. The air was thick, heavy with the scent of decay and something else. Something ancient and expectant. I spent the first hour exploring the ground floor. Cobweb-draped furniture huddled under white sheets like a congregation of ghosts. Portraits with faded, judging eyes followed my every move. It was old standard haunted house fare, predictable and almost disappointing. I was about to pack it in, labeled the manor as just another case of old house creaks, when my foot caught on a loose floorboard in the library. It wasn't just loose. It was a handle. My heart gave a little flutter of genuine excitement. Pulling it up revealed a set of narrow, stone steps descending into absolute darkness. This wasn't in any of the town records. I clicked on my headlamp, its beam cutting a sharp cone through the inky black. The steps were slick, with a dampness that chilled me to the bone. The air grew colder, heavier, and the smell of damp earth and rot intensified until it was almost suffocating. The steps opened into a small, circular basement, and what I saw made the breath catch in my throat. The walls, they weren't stone anymore. They were covered, floor to ceiling, in names. Scratched, carved, written in what looked horrifyingly like dried blood. Names and dates. Thomas Adler, 1887. Eleanor Vance, 1923. The Miller family, 1956. The list went on and on, a macabre tapestry of forgotten souls. These were the names from the town's missing persons files, stretching back centuries. All of them had one thing in common. They were last seen near Blackwood Manor. My bravado from earlier evaporated, replaced by a primal, chilling fear. In the center of the room, on a rickety wooden table, sat a single object. A large, leather-bound book. It was ancient, the leather cracked and worn, secured by a tarnished brass latch. It seemed to pulse with a faint, dark energy, drawing me in. My hands trembled as I reached out and unfastened the latch. The book fell open to a random page. The parchment inside yellowed and brittle. The handwriting was a frantic scrawl, penned by someone in a state of sheer terror. The first entry I read was dated 1799. It was a confession, a warning. The author, a man named Silas Blackwood, the original owner of the manor, hadn't built a home. He had crafted a prison. The book wasn't just a book. It was a trap. Silas had dabbled in arts he didn't understand, binding something ancient and malevolent to the book's pages. It fed on the life force of those who entered the manor, but it needed a conduit, an anchor. The journal explained that whoever read from the book became the new anchor, their soul bound to it, their body trapped within the manor's walls, until a new reader came along to take their place. The names on the walls weren't just a list of victims. They were a record of previous anchors, each one trapped, waiting. As I read, a low whisper seemed to slither from the corners of the room. It was a symphony of voices, all murmuring at once, unintelligible yet filled with an eternity of pain and despair. The beam from my headlamp began to flicker. I looked up from the book, my blood running cold. The shadows in the room were no longer static. They were moving, stretching, coalescing. They flowed like thick, black ink, pulling away from the walls and taking on vaguely human forms. A tall, slender shadow with the faint outline of a Victorian dress. A group of smaller shadows that seemed to huddle together, like a terrified family. The victims, the past anchors. Their prison had a new warden, and they were rising to greet me. I slammed the book shut, the sound echoing unnaturally loud in the confined space. But it was too late. I had read the words. The curse had been passed. A chilling laugh, high canteen echoed around me, but it came from my own throat. I hadn't made a sound. It was the book, speaking through me. The whispers grew louder, clearer. I could make out my own name now, whispered on 100 dead tongues. Amelia. Amelia, welcome. The shadows swirled closer. They're empty. Accusing forms surrounding me. They weren't hostile. They were expectant. They were free from the book's direct binding, and I had taken their place. Panic seized me. I scrambled back up the stone steps, my camera forgotten on the basement floor. I burst into the library, gasping for air, and sprinted for the front door. I threw my weight against it, but it wouldn't budge. It was as solid as the stone walls of the basement. I tried the windows, one by one, but they were sealed shut, the glass as unyielding as iron. The house was no longer just a house. It was a cage. My cage. From the library, I could hear a faint scratching sound. I knew, with a certainty that froze my soul, what it was. A new name being added to the wall. My name. The whispers followed me through the house, a constant, ghostly chorus. I could see them from the corner of my eye now. The shadow people, my predecessors. They watched me from every dark corner, every doorway. They were the silent audience to my eternal performance. My name is Amelia, and I'm the new keeper of Blackwood Manor. I'll be here, waiting for someone curious, someone brave, someone foolish enough to come looking for the truth. Someone else to open the book. Please, if you find this recording, stay away. Don't come looking for me. Don't become the next name on the wall. The night was heavy, a thick, inky blanket that swallowed the moon and stars whole. Amelia found herself standing before Elmwood Manor, its skeletal trees clawing at the sky like desperate fingers. She couldn't remember how she got there, only that a chilling dread had settled deep in her bones. The massive oak door creaked open on its own, an invitation into the suffocating darkness within. As she stepped over the threshold, the door slammed shut with a deafening boom that echoed through the cavernous hall. The air grew cold, thick with the scent of dust and something else, something ancient and decayed. She was trapped, her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drum against the oppressive silence. Panic began to set in. "Hello," she called out, her voice a small, trembling thing that the shadows seemed to mock. Only the creaks and groans of the old house answered. Dust motes danced in the slivers of moonlight piercing through grimy windows, illuminating portraits of stern-faced figures whose eyes seemed to follow her every move. She had to get out. She turned back to the door, her hands fumbling for the handle, but it was gone. In its place was a solid wall of cold, unyielding stone. A choked sob escaped her lips. This couldn't be happening. Driven by a surge of adrenaline, Amelia began to explore, desperate for another way out. The manor was a labyrinth of endless corridors and rooms that defied all logic. A hallway that stretched on for what felt like miles would suddenly end in a brick wall. A door she was certain led to the gardens, now opened into a dusty, forgotten nursery, where a single rocking horse swayed back and forth on its own. It was as if the house itself was alive, a malevolent entity playing a twisted game with her. As she navigated the shifting architecture, whispers began to slither from the walls, coiling around her like unseen serpents. "Amelia," they hissed, a chorus of disembodied voices that knew her name. They were everywhere in the rustle of curtains, the sigh of the wind through broken panes, the very floorboards beneath her feet. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, weaving tales of sorrow and despair, of souls trapped within these walls for eternity. Goosebumps prickled her skin as a phantom touch grazed her shoulder, cold as the grave. She spun around, but there was nothing there, only shadows, stretching and contorting into monstrous shapes in the periphery of her vision. In the center of what appeared to be a grand library, she found it, a large, leather-bound book resting on a pedestal. It was ancient, its cover unmarked, yet it seemed to pulse with a dark energy that drew her in as her fingers brushed against the worn leather. A jolt, like an electric shock, shot up her arm. The whispers intensified, urging her to open it. "The key is inside, te promise." With trembling hands, she lifted the heavy cover. The pages were filled with strange symbols and frantic, spidery handwriting, detailing rituals and incantations that made her stomach churn. She knew, with a certainty that chilled her to the core, that this book was the source of the house's power, the anchor for the tormented spirits trapped here. This was the heart of the nightmare. She had to destroy it. Snatching the book, she ran, the whispers turning to shrieks of rage. She found a large fireplace in a desolate dining hall, its hearth cold and black. Frantically, she tore pages from a different, mundane novel she found scattered on the floor, crumpling them into the grate. Using a forgotten matchbox from the mantelpiece, she coaxed a small flame to life. With a final, desperate prayer, she hurled the dark grimoire into the burgeoning fire. But instead of burning, the book seemed to absorb the flames. The symbols on its pages began to glow with an infernal light. A deafening roar erupted from the fireplace, and a violent explosion of emerald green fire burst into the room, throwing Amelia across the floor. The flames didn't burn. They were icy cold, licking at the walls and furniture, leaving frost in their wake. The shrieks of the spirits reached a fever pitch, and from the heart of the green inferno, a shadowy figure began to form, a horrifying amalgamation of twisted limbs and screaming faces. Amelia scrambled to her feet, terror giving her speed she didn't know she possessed. The chase was on. The shadowy beast pursued her through the maddening maze of the manor. Doors slammed shut just as she passed through them. Walls shifted to block its path, but it was relentless. It phased through obstacles, its chilling screams echoing in her ears. She could feel its icy breath on her neck, its spectral claws just inches from her back. The house was now a chaotic whirlwind of shifting rooms, spectral apparitions, and the deafening cacophony of the damned. She was running out of places to hide, running out of time. Ducking into a small study, she barricaded the door with a heavy desk, her lungs burning, her body trembling uncontrollably. She knew she couldn't outrun it forever. The book. The explosion had thrown it clear of the fireplace, and somehow, in the chaos, she had scooped it up. It lay open on the floor where she'd dropped it. The green fire from the chase had illuminated a single page she hadn't seen before. It wasn't an incantation or a ritual, but a riddle, written in elegant, looping script, a stark contrast to the madness filling the other pages. The pounding on the door began, the wood splintering under the entity's assault. Time was up. Her eyes scanned the riddle, her mind racing to decipher its cryptic words. I have no voice, but I tell all stories. Primera be nobody, but I hold ancient glories. I can be a friend or a fearsome foe. Break my spine, and freedom you'll know. Break my spine. The book. It wasn't about burning it or destroying it in the conventional sense. The solution was in the words themselves. It was a test of understanding, not of force. The door burst open, and the shadowy beast filled the doorway, its many eyes fixed on her. With her last ounce of strength, Amelia grabbed the book, ignoring the shrieking protests of the spirits and the terrifying visage before her. She bent the book backwards, forcing its spine against the edge of the desk. With a loud crack that sounded like snapping bone, the spine broke. For a moment, everything went silent. The shadowy monster froze, its form flickering. Then, with a final, agonizing scream that was not of one voice, but of hundreds, it dissolved into a shower of faint, glittering dust. The whispers ceased. A warm, golden light flooded the room, pushing back the shadows. The oppressive cold vanished, replaced by the gentle warmth of a morning sun. The wall in front of her shimmered and dissolved, revealing the grand oak door from the beginning, now slightly ajar, with daylight streaming through. Se was free. Stepping out of Elmwood Manor, Amelia didn't look back. The door swung shut behind her, but this time the sound was not a boom of imprisonment, but a soft click of finality. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more tales from the shadows. With a final word spoken, the chilling whispers ceased. The shadows that had danced and twisted around me for what felt like an eternity simply dissolved into nothing. Sunlight, pure and golden, cut through the attic's grime, showing me the path to freedom. Clutching the ancient book, I didn't dare look back, my every step a prayer to escape this haunted place. Safely in my car, speeding Hawaii, I risked one last glance in the rearview mirror. A fleeting darkness stared back. It was gone. But was it really over?